Hello, this is Jackie with Panama Relocation Tours. Thank you for joining us for our Saturday live stream. Today I have a special guest that are going to talk about their experience with healthcare here in Panama. I'll also share some of my own personal experiences with healthcare in Panama. You know, getting quality healthcare is one of the big concerns that people have about moving to Panama. You know, am I going to be able to find a doctor that speaks English? Are they going to be able to treat any pre-existing conditions that I have? Do they have the medications that I need to take? Those are all important things to find out, before you move to Panama. Last thing you want to do is move to Panama and find out that the medication you need is $600. That happened to one person who needed a transplant. She had a transplant, needed some rejection medication, but she didn't know it was that much. So one of the things that we talk about often in our online Panama relocation guide, and certainly during our tours, is that before you actually make the move to Panama, it'd be a good idea to have a consultation with a Panama doctor. If you have pre-existing conditions, have a consultation with a Panama doctor and kind of go over what your situation is, what medications you take. You can do a telemedicine, so you can see them and they can see you. And then that will help build your confidence in coming to Panama, knowing that you can be taken care of. Now, for some medications, you might not find them right in the town where you are. For example, if you're in Chitre, they might not have it in Chitre, but they might have the medication in Panama City, and it's easy enough to get medication sent to you. But any kind of health situation that you have, it can probably be taken care of here in Panama. We have some world-class hospitals in Panama City, also in David. There's some really good private hospitals, and even the public hospitals in some areas are absolutely excellent. So I know that all sounds good, but it would be really good for you to be able to hear from someone that's actually used the healthcare system. Of course, I have myself, and so have our guest, Kelle, and her husband, Jim, I think is his name. So I'm going to bring them on in just a minute. For those of you that are new to our channel, my name's Jackie Lang, owner of Panama Relocation Tours. Since 2010, we've been helping people move to Panama the right way. You can get more information about all of our tours, our online guide, and just a lot of articles about moving to Panama on our website at panamarelocationtours.com. Now, without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring on our guest. No, it's Jeff, not Jim. It's Jeff. So it's Kelle and Jeff. Yeah, I knew it started with the J, so I got part of it right. So Kelle and Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. Now, if Kelle and Jeff look a little bit familiar, it might be because they did a YouTube video for us. I think it was last year that you did one after you moved to Panama. So if you haven't seen that, just look through some of our other YouTube channels and our YouTube channel, and you can find their video to watch it, sharing their experience and their cost of living of moving to Panama. So for those that haven't seen the video, Kelle, or that need a refresher course, Kelle and Jeff, if you could just give a little bit of background about when did you move to Panama, where did you move to, and then we'll get right into the topic about healthcare.
Sure. So we moved to Panama 3 years ago. We're actually on a friendly nations visa, and we are getting our permanent residency in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Super excited. And so we've been here for 3 years, and we moved to Boquete, Panama.
Mm-hmm. And you selected Boquete because there's a lot of expats that are there, a lot of social activities that are there, the kind of things that you were interested in getting involved in. Just there's something going on every single day in Boquete. Yeah, every single day. Whatever it is you want to get involved in, it's there for sure. And also, if you don't speak Spanish, moving to a place that has a high concentration of expats makes it a whole lot easier because you can get by with limited Spanish. Of course, you want to start learning more Spanish after you get there, and it'll eventually just rub off on you, just being around people and asking for your check and asking how much something is at the farmer's market. But being able to just move right into a place and not feel totally intimidated, because a lot of people speak English, not just the expats, but the Panamanians too, speak a lot of English in that area. So that makes it easy.
Yep, that's absolutely true. Jeff worked in kitchens for 15 years, so he spoke pretty good Spanish when we got here. I was fluent in high school, but it had been 35 years, and it was written Spanish, so I still am mildly conversational at this point, but I get by just fine here. So
yeah, it's a very easy transition there.
Yeah.
So tell us about what kind of experiences have you had with the healthcare system in Panama?
We've had more than I wanted, but so we have. Do you need me to come closer? I'm going to pull the mic over so you can hear me. We have both had issues that have taken us into the healthcare system. When I first moved here, I was falling all the time. It was very strange. We had we had weird. We have stairs in our house, and I misjudged them, and then I caught my toe on another set of stairs. I fell like 3 times in the first 3 months I was here. And so I went in for an x-ray, and it cost me, and so they're in the clinic here in town, and it was $26 to have an x-ray done and read by the radiologist and delivered to me. However, I had to also purchase the CD, the read-write CD for the x-ray films,
which was in a store that was 2 blocks away.
Yeah. And so we had to go buy it and then bring it back. So good to know before you go in, because I just had another x-ray because I slipped and fell again. And I'm really good at landing on my knees. Anyway,
and the sidewalks are just horrible in Boquete.
Yeah, this one was in my house. So the floor was wet. I slipped. I fell. We have put down tape in the meantime to make sure that doesn't happen. But so again, $26 for knee and ankle to be x-rayed. And in the meantime, in the in-between space for me, I have had, so I'm diabetic. And so when I came here, I was doing the Trulicity pens for my medication, and they do sell them here. I was not doing the Ozempic, I was doing the Trulicity, but they're $44 a pen. And so it's quite pricey. And so I worked with my doctor here to get me on different medication. And so now I'm on a different medication that's about half the price of what I had been on before. And so, I just keep a backlog of 2 months worth of my medications at all times, so that if we get protests, which are not as common right now because the new president is not allowing the protesters to block the roads. But for the last 2 years with the previous president, the protesters would block the roads, and we could be without propane and gas and medications and things like that. And so I just keep a 2-month backlog so that I always have it. And then I ended up, so I had a weird experience. It turned out to be a migraine, in which I have a history of migraines, but not visual hallucinatory migraines. And it turned out to be a visual hallucinatory migraine. And I was like, something isn't right. I saw things wrong. And so the wonderful thing about working with your doctor here in Panama is that you get their WhatsApp number. And I texted my doctor when this was happening, and she said, yeah, that doesn't sound good. I want you to go down and get a CAT scan and an ultrasound. And I was like, okay. And so she sent me via WhatsApp an order for those. And I got on the phone. A friend of mine had been to a center in David, a private center that does those things. And so she got on the phone and got us an appointment as we're driving down. And so we're driving down to David. 40 minutes later, we walk in the door. We have the appointment. It's a 5-minute wait.
Which I think we spent filling out paperwork.
Which we did, yeah. We walked in, and I immediately got the CAT scan and the ultrasound, and one was $180 and the other one was $200. No insurance. We have no insurance here. So super fast, super easy. The results were emailed to us. We forwarded those to my doctor. She looked at it and said, you're fine. Don't worry about it. It's probably just a migraine. Go back home. And then a couple of days later, I walked into her office and gave her $20 for the consult. Right?
Mhm.
So that would never happen in the US. Okay. That would never happen.
It would never happen. No,
Yeah.
let alone the WhatsApp communication with your doctor. That
Right.
that would be unheard of.
Unheard of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then Jeff, you want to talk about yours?
Yeah. So, in terms of my, okay, so there have been a number of things that I've gone to the doctor for. Most of them have went pretty similar to what Kelly's stories are. What she just described. The unique situation to me that she hasn't had though. So there are a number of psychiatric issues that I have that I was dealing with and had been taking medication for, and was very happy with the things that I was doing in the States with that. So when I got down here, it took me probably 2 months to find a psychiatrist down here that I was happy with. And did find one of those. The first one I went to, I wasn't happy with for whatever reason. And found another one at the second one at the recommendation of my doctor this time. And she is great, speaks fluent English. The first one that I went to spoke enough English that with my Spanish, we didn't have a problem communicating. The second one, fluent English, not a problem at all. And so some of the medications that I take can be difficult to find in Boquete or in David. Sometimes, most of the times I could find them, but sometimes it would take driving around David for 2 or 3 hours, going to all of the different pharmacies I could to get what I needed. So what I wound up doing was asking the doctor to give me a 2-month backlog supply that I could just have on hand for a similar reason that Kelly expressed about concerns with protests and just not being able to get availability. Thank you. So what wound up happening over the last 3 months, the medication that I take has not been in country, but because I had recently just filled 2 months of prescription and I had the 2-month backlog, I haven't run out. Not only that, but even when it was difficult to find in David and in Boquete, what my doctor would do, there's a service that she works with that can call into Panama City and see if they have any in Panama City that they can then send through. I think they usually use Flete Cheval, which is a company packaging, kind of like UPS here in Panama. And basically all I had to do was pay for the cost of the medication. And the doctor would talk to the company in Panama City, who would then pick up the prescription, send it to me, and all I had to do was pay for the medication. I didn't have to pay for the shipping. I didn't have to pay an extra service charge, anything like that.
Right.
So the doctors here have been, all of them have been wonderful with working with us to make sure that we can get what we need. And it's much less of an experience that I had numerous times in the States, where a doctor would be like, okay, here's whatever your diagnosis is, here's your prescription or whatever plan of treatment is, and okay, you're done. They wouldn't say it, but it's like, get out of my office, goodbye, and have fun.
So just so people know, it's your ADHD medication.
Yes, my ADHD. Yes. So
when you see your doctor, Jeff, what is the cost to go see your doctor? Because she's a specialist, so it probably costs a little bit more. So what is the cost?
For the psychiatrist, it's $70.
Okay.
For an appointment. And that's, I can either, so she has an office in David. We live in Boquete, so it's 40 minutes up the mountain, or down the mountain to get there, and then 40 minutes back up, which I've done numerous times. She's also happy to do online appointments.
Telemedicine.
Yeah, thank you. Telemedicine. She's happy to do that so long as I pay ahead of time.
Right.
which again is easy enough, not a problem.
Yeah.
In that case, you can either do something like a bank transfer. There's a service here called Yappy that you can use on your phone if you have a certain bank that allows that. The easiest thing for me to do has been people will just give me an account number and I'll go into whatever branch here in Boquete, make a deposit in cash, and then show them the receipt. And they're like, okay, great, you paid. Here's the telehealth link for the meeting. And then we have the appointment and it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
So.
You want to talk about your MRI?
Oh, yeah. So I have recently also been dealing with some back issues, and without going into too much of the details on that specific issue, where we're at now. So I had gotten an X-ray done, similar experience to Kelle. Went into the local Clinica de Salud here in town. Got the X-ray done, had the CDR, $25, easy enough, not a problem. After that, I had gone to an orthopedist. He looked at that. We tried a couple of things, didn't wind up working out. So now we're at the point he wanted me to get an MRI so he could get a better look at what exactly was happening with my back. So I just did that on Tuesday, and again, without any health insurance, in Cherokee Hospital, it was $600. And I had the WhatsApp for the hospital, asked them for the imaging center. They sent me that. I asked for the MRI department. They gave me another contact information for the specific person to scheduled with them. And all of this was within probably about 45 minutes that this happened, of contacting people on WhatsApp. And they gave me a number of appointment dates and how much it was, and scheduled my appointment, went in and got the MRI done. I was there for probably about an hour, between checking in, waiting, getting the MRI, and then going back to the car. It was probably about an hour, from locking the car and getting out to unlocking the door and getting back in. So very quick, very easy. If you aren't as comfortable with Spanish as I am, it probably would have helped to have another person there.
Translator.
Yeah, a translator or something like that. But even that, so I'm not fluent in Spanish, far from it. I took 2.5. Oh, be quiet.
Very fluent.
I took 2.5 years of high school Spanish. And then, yes, I did work in kitchens for 15 years, so I was very comfortable just conversing in basic level Spanish. My vocabulary isn't nearly as large as I would like it to be, so there are a lot of times where in more detailed conversations I have difficulty. But by the time I get to that level of conversation, usually it's either with a specialist or with somebody who I've spoken with enough that we either have a rapport and we can work around it and they can simplify what they're saying so that I do understand it, or most of the time they speak enough English that with my Spanish we can come together and communicate without a problem. So
yeah. So I just remembered that I also had an allergic reaction at one point, sometime in the last 3 years. And it was starting to be shortness of breath, and I knew I needed steroids, right? I was getting hives and the whole 9 yards. And there's a clinic right over near us in Boquete here. And I went in there, and the doctor who's usually there was not there at the time. And the receptionist doesn't speak any English, or like very minimal. And so I'm sitting there using Google Translate, trying to get her to tell her what's going on. And she's on the phone with the doctor who's talking to her. Instead of, I don't know why they didn't just put me on the phone with the doctor. That would have made more sense because the doctor spoke English. But whatever. She was driving to the clinic, and she was like, yep, sounds like she needs steroids. Just put her in a room and give her some steroids. And that was it. I just went into the room and they gave me IV steroids and some fluids and, took care of it. But, sometimes Google Translate is your best friend for
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to mention this website I just put up called simplifypanama.com. So your doctor may know, who they can call to source medication somewhere in Panama if they don't have it locally, but so does this company, Simplify Panama. So, if you have a medication, you're having a hard time finding it, you just contact Julie, who's the owner of Simplify Panama, and she'll find it for you. And she gets it and she sends it Uno Express. She'll have it the next day. Also, it could be even, this is something crazy I did. I was remodeling my house and I really, really, really wanted to have a bathtub in my bathroom. And I looked at Do-It Center and I looked at Hopsa and I looked at all the different places and I couldn't find one. And I knew that my contractor could maybe sort of make one for me, but the measurements I needed were not available. So I contacted Julie at Simplify Panama and said, I need to get a bathtub form, and these are the measurements that you need. Within 5 minutes, she said, you want this one, this one, this one, or this one? And I said, I want that one. I had it at my house the next day, a bathtub.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so, it could be guitar strings or bathtub or medications or whatever it is that you need. We had someone that wanted to get a wreath made and delivered to some friends that were coming in at a hotel. And Julie made all the arrangements and had, everything done. So she gets things done and she sources whatever that you might need. You can send her a picture of something on Amazon and say, do you know if they have this in Panama City? She said, oh yeah, I know exactly where it is. And she'll go get it and she'll send it to you the next day. So then you can avoid those extra costs. She doesn't charge very much. It's like $7. It doesn't, yeah. And she'll call a bunch of different hospitals to find the medication that you need, and off the beaten path pharmacies a lot of people don't know about, but she's really good at finding medications that you can't normally find. So keep that in your notes, everybody. Simplify Panama. The owner's name is Julie, and I've used her many times. Even like Temptation cat treats for my cat. You get them in Panama City, but you can't get them in Chiriquí Province. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to share one thing that was not optimal about medical stuff here. I have experienced a couple of times some serious misogyny with some male doctors here. There was a doctor in David where thankfully I had Jeff come in with me to the meeting because my blood sugar was not under control, and the doctor didn't believe a word I told him
until I said it the exact same words after her.
Yeah. He was like, he was lecturing me like I was an errant child and telling me that, no, this, no, that, no, that. And I'm like, dude, I don't do any of that. What is your problem? And he was completely offensive. So, it's rare, but it happens. And yeah. And I mean, that happens in the US too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But not nearly.
I had a really bad experience with it. I've had all good experiences except for one. I had one really bad experience after I had COVID and was in the hospital in ICU for 9 days. When they let me out, I was on an oxygen machine 24/7 and I just couldn't breathe. It felt like there was elephants sitting on my chest. And, no matter what I did, the medications they said to take, it wasn't getting better. So I went to a doctor in Boquete and I told her the situation, and I couldn't be away from my oxygen for very long. And she told me, well, just take this cough syrup. It should make it better. And at that point, I knew if I followed her advice, I was going to die because it was really getting bad. I couldn't get better. So, and this was when everything was shut down in the country and you couldn't just get on a plane and go to Panama City and see a specialist. But I got some really bad advice from a doctor in Boquete. Other doctors I've seen were excellent, but that one was not good. So my solution was I went to YouTube University and tried to find the doctor that had the most experience with COVID. Of course, any doctor in the U.S., they won't talk to you if you're not in the U.S. So that was out of the question. So I found a doctor in India that I contacted, and he said, to get this CAT scan and to get this lab work. And I sent it all to him. And he said, oh, I know exactly what it is. You've got blood clots in your lungs and you need to do this and this and this. And I was able to get those medications within 3 days. I was better.
Wow.
But if I just taken the cough syrup like that doctor in Boquete told me to do, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So I did have one bad experience, but I want to talk about one really good experience of something just happened with the last tour that we had. The last tour that we had on the second day, no, Saturday, Sunday, on Monday. Yeah, on the second day of the tour, somebody woke up in the morning and their eye was all swollen. And she went to the tour guides and she said, I slept in my contacts and I think one stuck up in my eyeball someplace. And, it hurts a lot and it was all swollen and red. And so we got her to the hospital that was in Panama. And the doctor said, you need to see an ophthalmologist. And of course, there was no ophthalmologist available. So we called, nearby towns in Santiago, no ophthalmologist. So I've had several eye surgeries since I've been in Panama. So I got on the phone. I called my ophthalmologist in Panama City. This was like at 4:00 in the afternoon. And I explained the situation to him. And I said that the doctor said that that they got the contact out, but that she had ulcers on her cornea. And that's what was causing on both eyes. So that's what was causing so much pain. He said, she needs to get here as soon as possible. I said, well, we're going to get a taxi to get her there, but it's going to be at least 2 hours. He said, I'll wait. This was in Hospital Patia. He said, I'm going to wait for her until she gets here.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I love about this country is that it is small enough that people are people, not institutions.
Yes. Yeah.
And they care. Like I texted my doctor for a referral for the X-ray, and she said I'm out of the office, so you'll have to go to my partner, and because she was on vacation, and she texted me back, right? And that's the sort of thing that happens, right? So it's a very personalized level of service. When I went and had her read the scripts on yesterday, she called the physical therapist in town to say, yes, it's okay to go ahead and give her physical therapy now, because I had gone there before and they wouldn't give it to me until I had the x-ray done.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, you're going to Jessica? No problem. I will just call her. Right. And I was like, oh, fantastic. So, I have found, and she connected me with this other doctor who is part-time in David and part-time here, and she's a nutritionist and put me on an anti-inflammatory diet that I lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks.
Wow. I need the information on that. Send it to me.
I will let you know. But yeah, I was swollen and I was miserable and always inflamed, and my doctor's in the States, and I'd been begging for years for my doctors in the States to address my inflammation. And they all just looked at me and said, take Advil. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I need a solution, not a medication that's going to damage my liver over time. Come on. And none of them would do it. And in 5 minutes, my doctor here was like, oh, let me give you the nutritionist. She'll put you on this. And I felt so much better. I was on the protocol for a month. And then honestly sort of fell off the protocol. And I'm like, okay, 3 years later, I really need to go back on the protocol again. And I'm going to do it again for another month and we'll be fine. Right.
Yeah.
So, but there is much more attention to detail here. However, none of your records are electronic, right? So all of them are handwritten by your doctor. And so, if you need to go to a different doctor, you've got to be able to download all of the information about your medical history to the new person. They don't have access to the electronic system like is in the United States. So Jeff,
Only exception with that is MiniMed. MiniMed does do electronic, and it's shared with all 15 of their clinics in their hospital. So if you go to a different clinic, and they're opening up new clinics throughout the country, but theirs is all very vertical. That if you go to a doctor in Panama City and you see one of their doctors in David, they're going to have your complete medical history. So that'll be good when it's in more places in Panama.
Yeah. So, but we just keep notes for ourselves and bring them to the doctor when we go, and that's not a big deal. And then one other thing that we've done is that I went in for a dermatological exam because I had a bump on my arm that looked funny, and I'm like, now let's see if that's okay. And so I made the appointment, and we waited like 4 days for it or something. It wasn't long, and it was $60 for a specialist in David, at Cherokee Hospital, and so, and that was super simple too. So all of these things, we had dental care done. Jeff's had a few fillings replaced, and we just got that bill. You had 3 fillings replaced, and it was $195 for the 3 fillings. And the cleanings for the 2 of us with the exams, and the dentist here does your cleanings, not a dentist.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a big surprise when I moved to Panama, that the dentist does the actual cleaning.
Yeah, and so that here in Boquete, which is more expensive, I understand, than David, because I talked about it on my TikTok, and my David followers are like, that's expensive. The Panama City people are like, where did you get that done for that cheap? So it varies, right? But it was $100 for the 2 of us, so $50 a person for the cleaning. And it's just the one thing that I will say is that shop for your medications, because they can be very different prices in very different pharmacies.
Just across the street, one pharmacy is $54, the one across the street's $30 for the exact same brand, same medication, same box, and everything.
So they'll have a discount day on Sunday and Monday. The other one will have discounts all week. The other one doesn't do discounts.
Yeah. And some of them give discounts for buying an entire box, whereas other ones don't. I'm jubilado now. I just crossed 55 in November, and so I'm getting the jubilado discount on my medications now, which is nice. So you really do have to shop for your medications. You spend an inordinate amount of time shopping in Panama. You're going to 4 different places to get your groceries, or to do it. Think of like 1990s mom and pop shops is how Jeff usually describes it, right? It's you don't have the super Walmart around the corner from your house. You have to go to 4 different, we go to the fruit stand for the fruits and vegetables. We go to El Rey for the more exotics, or stuff from the US that we need to get. We go to Super Baru or Romero for the local stuff. It's just, you learn where things are.
Different things. Yeah. And you learn which grocery store has the much higher prices than other people, but they have more exported things.
Right.
So if you could please hold off on any questions, and this whole live stream is about healthcare in Panama. So let's stick with the questions. Any questions that we have when I do open it up for questions will be about healthcare. Next Saturday, I'm doing a live stream that's just our open Q&A about any questions, but please hold off on your questions. So I wanted to, so my doctor, my ophthalmologist, he waited for that lady, and, she's all fine right now. But, how many doctors would do that? That you call them at 5 o'clock at night, they're ready to go home. And he says, I'm going to wait right here for her. And I gave her his phone number. He had her phone number. They stayed in touch the whole way to know how far away. And it's just, I often say that they really put the care back into healthcare here in Panama.
The interesting thing is that you asked that question, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not sure I would expect it here, but it's happened. That level of care and that level of personal connection happens often enough with medical professionals here that I'm not surprised that it happened at all.
Yeah. Well, and it helped that I knew him. He knows me. He's done, 4 eye surgeries for me, and we have a good relationship. But he's always said, anytime you need anything, just let me know. And that's just the way the doctors are. So
Yep.
some of you on the call might be wondering, why in the world are Kelly and Jeff paying out of pocket for all of these things instead of getting insurance? So let me explain the situation with insurance in Panama. For most insurances in Panama, it's difficult to get Panama insurance, if you have pre-existing conditions. There is like something called the family medical plan that you have if you have less than 3 pre-existing conditions, they'll write you a new policy and you can start paying for it, but everything's excluded for the first 2 years. And after that, it's only covered at 50%. It's a lot of money to be spending every single month for something that doesn't even cover anything that you have, whenever you just pay out of pocket when you go, and the total cost per year is going to be probably less than what your insurance premium would have been. So with most insurances, if you have in Panama, if you have pre-existing conditions, then it's going to be very, very difficult to get any kind of insurance. Or it will exclude any of your pre-existing conditions for the first 2 years. So here's an example. Someone has the insurance with Hospital Santa Fe in Panama City, but she has high blood pressure. So they excluded anything to do with high blood pressure, and it's just excluded forever. It's not just the first 2 years, but it's excluded forever. Well, she had an episode where she had her blood pressure went up really, really high. Her husband thought she was having a stroke, and they rushed her to the hospital, and they put her in the hospital, through the emergency room. She was, I think, there for 5 days. She was there for 5 days, but because her pre-existing condition wasn't covered, even though she was paying for her insurance, her pre-existing condition wasn't covered, so her hospital bill was like $9,000. So, paying for insurance when it doesn't cover any pre-existing conditions is most people they decide they're going to pay out of pocket instead. The only exception, and that's why I've worked so hard for the last 5 years, I've worked so hard for those people that qualify for Medicare Advantage. And you have to be 65 to get it, a U.S. citizen to get it. But there's some hospitals now that will accept Medicare Advantage, and you don't have to prepay anything. They just bill whatever your insurance company is with Medicare Advantage. So with Medicare Advantage, it doesn't matter if you have pre-existing conditions. It doesn't matter how old you are. So when you guys are old enough, you want to get Medicare Advantage, because then it's going to cover any urgent care or emergencies that you have. But even then, it's a lot of money to spend on insurance whenever it's working out pretty good to just pay out of pocket. Your total annual cost for the medical care that you're getting is probably less than it would be even if you could get insurance and you were paying a premium every single month.
I've done the math every year, and it is costing us less for. So remember, we were getting our medications with a copay with Jeff's. So Jeff worked in the U.S. and he doesn't work here. So, but we had health insurance through his company in the U.S. and he paid for that at like $225,
like $250, $270,
$270 every pay period, which is 26 weeks because it was a 2-week period anyway. But and so the medications were a lot cheaper because we had the copays. Well, we also had the payment every month for the insurance.
Right.
And so I did the math, and every year, despite all of the things that I've mentioned, right, the costs have been less here than they were just to pay for the insurance and the copays in the States.
Yep.
And, on top of it, so as a diabetic, I had to go in every quarter and get my A1C done and the whole thing. And by the way, they don't call it an A1C here. They call it a hemoglobin something. So you have to say diabetica and they go, oh, okay. And then they give you whatever you need. They don't recognize the words A1C. And so, but it's, the doctors are not on top of you here like they were in the States, right? I'm also on hormone replacement therapy. And so that's easy enough to get. You just go into the pharmacy and say, I need XYZ. And there you go, right? And so the whole process has been less expensive than paying for the insurance in the U.S. with the employer paying for part of it, right?
Yeah, and you know, and even if you have insurance like family medical plan, it doesn't cover 100%. It
Right.
only covers 70%, so you're still out of pocket a lot of money. And I can tell you that, you know, some of the doctors I've talked to and some of the hospital administrators I've talked to, they're glad to just see a patient that's going to pay cash or put it on a credit card so that they don't have to fill out a bunch of paperwork for insurance. I mean, they'll do it if they have to, but some doctors, the doctor itself may not. So you know, a lot of people get really freaked out. What do you mean I can't get insurance because I have high blood pressure and high cholesterol and I'm diabetic and this and that? And I said, well, you can get insurance, but it's going to exclude everything for the first 2 years, and it's only going to cover it at 50% after that. So is it worth it to keep paying those monthly premiums? And that's something that everybody has to, it's personal decision that everybody has to decide. But, you know, when I lived in Boquete, to see a doctor was $15, $20. In Panama City, it's $20 to see a doctor. Unless you have MiniMed, then you can get $220 a year. You can see unlimited doctor appointments and x-rays and lab work for $220 a year. So hopefully that'll be expanding throughout the rest of the country. And they don't care if you have pre-existing conditions or how old you are. So hopefully that I'll be able to announce soon when they're going to open up in other locations.
Yeah, somebody asked in the chat about 911 here, and there isn't a 911 here. So there's a service here called Rodney, which is run by a guy named Rodney. Go figure. And they will do all emergency sort of stuff for you. We had that the first year until we figured out where we would go for different things and how to do it, and then now we feel like, you know, we know where the hospitals are, we know where we know who has the ambulances, and so we're like, okay, we know who to call for these things. And so but until then, it was $90 for the year to be able to call him in the event that, you know, anything happens, right?
And there's a private ambulance service in Boquete that you can call, and it'll get there so much faster than anything that a public ambulance would do. Yeah. So that's always an option too. So I'm going to open it up for some questions from the audience. I know they're clamoring at wanting to get some questions answered. So if anybody has a question for Kelle or for Jeff will be back in a little bit. Then you know the routine. You have to put 3 question marks in front of your question for me to pop it up on the screen. So this one says, my wife has one med that needs a prescription in Panama. Can she get the script in Panama from a doctor without contacting her doctor in the U.S.? So first of all, the medication that she takes may not need a prescription in Panama. Some medications you don't need a prescription. She should just go to the pharmacy and see if she can get it filled. But any doctor in Panama, for them to write a prescription, they're going to want to do their own evaluation. They will look at whatever your doctor said in the U.S., but they may want to get some lab work done and do some other tests before they just go write a prescription because some other doctor said that you need that medication. But just check at the pharmacy. They might not need it. So next question. Do you have to have health insurance to qualify for a pensionado visa? No, you don't need health insurance to get any visa in Panama. Thanks for the information you shared. Do some doctors or hospitals offer a discount on services when you pay with cash? Have you ever had, I mean, I usually do pay with cash, but they have their prices published usually.
Oh. So here's a funny story.
Some of them don't take a credit card. They only take cash.
So here's a funny story. A friend of ours slipped and shattered her hip. And she went to, they took her in an ambulance to Cherokee Hospital, and they said that it was a good timing for her to have her hip replacement because they were having a 25% off sale on
There you
hip
go.
replacements that weekend. And so instead of paying 10 grand for her hip replacement, she paid 7,500.
Mm-hmm. So I understand that you have to have a COVID shot to get medical care in Panama. That is not true. They don't even ask you if you've been vaccinated for COVID to get medical care. Now, some insurance in Panama, if you're over 60, they require you to be vaccinated for COVID for some of the Panama insurances if you're over 60. But to get medical care or to be seen at the hospital or go to emergency room, they don't care if you're vaccinated or not. They're going to take care of you.
Yeah. So somebody's asking about the protocol for the anti-inflammatory. Sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, if you send that to me, I can put it in the show notes of this and people can check it out later if you want to share it. Okay. It says, do you know the cost of LASIK eye surgery in Panama? I don't know. Do you know?
Oh,
no idea.
No, I don't know. You have to call an ophthalmologist to find out. Stacy says, do you need a script from a doctor to get hormone replacement therapy?
I'll answer that one. So the first time that Kelle went in to get the hormone replacement, she did see the doctor and they gave her a prescription. We had just gotten here, so we didn't know this at the time. She went back for prescriptions probably 2 or 3 times. And then it turns out all you need to do, I have an album in the photos on my phone for medications of the different boxes of prescriptions that we have. And I go into the pharmacies and just say, I need this a box of this prescription or of this medication, 2 or 3 or however much we need for whatever we're buying, and pick it up for her hormone replacement. And they've gotten to know me well enough that they just know what I need at this point. But no, you do not require a prescription to get hormone replacement therapy.
You don't even need a photo. We just do the photos for ease.
Yeah.
If you have a list of the medication that you need and the quantity of it, then you're fine. So
yeah, bring in the generic name of the medication and what dose it's in, and they'll be able to help you out.
Yeah.
All right. One of the things we do during a Panama relocation tour, we encourage people to bring a list of medications that you take, because we do a hospital tour. We also go to a pharmacy where you can ask the pharmacist, do you have this medication? What is it going to cost? And some people, oh my gosh, that's cheaper than my copay back home. I'll take 10 boxes, please. So, it's very surprising that it's just a different system here.
Yeah.
So can we get short-term or tourism medical insurance? You can get traveler's insurance. Just do a search for travel insurance. There's all kinds of different companies that offer travel insurance. I read that about 10 years ago, Panama used to offer that the first 30 days you were in Panama, that they covered any medical emergencies at a public hospital. And I heard that they're going to be bringing that back. But I haven't seen any other details from the Tourism Authority or from the president of Panama. So maybe they'll bring that back someday. Keep in mind, if you go to a public hospital, it's about $2 to see a doctor, or $5 for a specialist. And if you go into the emergency room, it might cost you $10. So it's not gonna break the bank if you go to a public hospital. Am I eligible for a temporary visa? I am eligible. While applying for a visa pensionado, visit a public hospital in an emergency situation, do I need travel insurance? So your travel, if you go to a public hospital or a private hospital while you're in Panama in an emergency situation, if you have travel insurance and you give them all the receipts, then they're going to reimburse you for any expenses that you have. However, if you're going to a public hospital and you were there in the emergency room for 4 hours getting an IV and your total cost was $25, is it really worth it to file that claim with travel insurance? Maybe not. Now, if you went to a private hospital and you were in there for 4 hours and got an IV, I mean, that could be $200 to $500. So it might be more. So then you might want to. Does anyone offer Invisalign in Panama? I don't even know what that is. Do you know, Kelly?
Yeah, it's a teeth. It's like braces for teeth, only plastic.
Okay.
So I don't know. Do you know?
So I don't know if Invisalign the brand is offered, but I believe that there are some type of corrective trays that you can get from different providers here. I don't know the name of it, and I haven't really researched it, but I've seen it advertised before, so I believe some variation is available.
Right. How do I get a doctor's consultation in Panama from the USA? So one way is we did, maybe, I don't know if it was last year or 6 months ago, I did a live stream with a Panamanian doctor. He works at Pacifica Salud in Panama City, and he does telemedicine calls with people. He speaks perfect English. I called him about something about 2 weeks ago, and he said, I'm in Amsterdam. That's just, you call them, they're going to pick up whenever you have their WhatsApp number. But anyway, if you look for that video, in the description of the video, it has his email, his cell phone, and a place where you can schedule a consultation with him. So next one is Jeff says, I lost my employer medical coverage and won't be moving to Panama until late in the year. I hope, should I reach out to one of the recommended insurance agents now for Medicare Advantage? So if you qualify for Medicare Advantage now, then yes, you should absolutely go ahead and reach out. If you already have Medicare, you can't convert to Medicare Advantage until October, but it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and reach out to them right now, and they can go over with you all the different plans that would work for you and help you decide which one is the best one for you. Some of the Medicare Advantage plans offer what's called a give back. Like I have Medicare Advantage and I only pay $125 a month. That's all I pay, where most people pay $185 a month, but with my United Healthcare, it gives some money back. So reach out to them now. How much does the flu and COVID vaccine cost approximately? Do you have any idea, Kelly or Jeff?
Well, so I haven't seen any COVID vaccines available in the last couple of years. But when they were available you could go to, we call it Gringo Corner, but what's it called?
Plaza Terrenal in David, yeah.
Yeah, so Plaza Terrenal. And they would have these tables set up outside of the stores with people giving the vaccines, and all you had to do was walk up, they'd give you the vaccine, you walk away. There was no charge. So there's that. I also want to mention that you can get a doctor to come to your house for $50.
Yeah.
And when I threw my back out of like a year ago and I couldn't move, we had the doctor come to the house and he gave me a shot to get me upright and moving and did some blood work while he was there, and the whole 9 yards. $50 to have that happen. So that's another big bonus. And when COVID was in full bloom, my understanding was if you thought you had COVID, they did not want you to come in. They would send somebody to your house to test you.
Right.
Yeah.
Whenever I got out of the hospital after having COVID, and the doctor from India wanted me to get lab work, well, a lot of the labs were not open, but they would send someone to your house. So I sent a WhatsApp to one of the labs, and they sent someone, and they were in the full hazmat gear and everything when they came to my house, but they did all the lab work. They came to me in Boquete to do all the lab work, and then just sent me a WhatsApp with all the results in about 2 hours. It was just amazing. And it was just like $75. And I had a long, many pages of lab work. It was super affordable. That's something that everybody should know, is you don't need a doctor's prescription to go get lab work. You can go to any laboratory, and just your regular panel of, triglycerides and cholesterol and hemoglobin and just the usual things that you would get, that the doctor would have you get every year or every 6 months. You can just get that yourself. and it'll say this is where normal is and this is where you are. And if you're not normal, then you go see your doctor and say, I just did my lab work and something's not right here. And they may require some additional lab work, but you can be proactive and get the lab work done before you go see your doctor, instead of seeing the doctor, getting the lab work, and going back to the doctor again.
Yeah, I went in and did a full panel recently, and it was $129 for everything. And $50 of that was just the vitamin D panel. So everything else was covered by that other, $79. So yeah.
Do you need a U.S. address to keep Medicare Advantage plan? You do have to have a U.S. address to keep a Medicare Advantage plan. Ralph wants to know, is there any talk about legalizing medical cannabis in Panama? There is talk about legalizing it, but it's only going to be used for, currently, it's only going to be used for people that have terminal cancer, that have epilepsy, severe situations. It's not going to be like it is in other places in the United States. At least not yet. Is there a list of the doctors in the PRG guide to ask about meds for kidney transplant person? There is a list in the Panama Relocation online guide. If you log in and you search healthcare providers, we have a complete list of doctors divided by specialists. So you can contact them to find out if the medication is available. Also, the contact information for that doctor that I said that will do telemedicine, he's in that page as well, up at the top of it. So is Medicare Advantage accepted in Panama? Medicare Advantage is accepted in Panama for urgent care and emergencies only. And at certain hospitals that you go to, you don't have to prepay. You just show your card. That's it. They send the bill to the insurance company. It's not at all hospitals, but at several hospitals, and I'll be able to announce 3 more hospitals next week. Can you recommend a Medicare person so I can switch? Yes. So if you have the online guide, then we just search Medicare Advantage brokers in the online guide. If you don't have the online guide, send an email to info@PanamaRelocationTours.com, and I'll be glad to share with you their information so they can evaluate your situation and help you switch from Medigap, which won't cover you at all in Panama, to a Medicare Advantage plan. Let's see, I already did that question. Is the quality of medical care much lower at a public hospital compared to a private hospital? Have you had any experience at a public hospital, Kelly or Jeff?
No. I've gotten feedback from Panamanians on my TikTok channel, because I've got a TikTok channel that people follow here. And when I talk about public versus private hospitals, what they've said is that if they're going to the hospital using the public hospital, that it can take a lot longer to get in for appointments, that it can take months to get in for appointments. And so that's the only thing. I mean, if you're going in for an emergency, obviously that's not going to be the issue, right? But for anything that's a scheduled appointment, it can take a lot longer to get an appointment there.
Yeah, it can take longer. And the chances of you having, like I was in a private ICU room whenever I was in the hospital with COVID. If I had gone to a public hospital, instead of the $15,000 that I paid for my 9 days in ICU, if I'd gone to the public hospital, it probably would have been in a room with 20 other people, and it would have probably been, maybe $500. But my doctor spoke English. Some of the nurses did. We know how to use, I had like 8 nurses that were just right there taking care of me every single minute. So there's going to be good doctors and really good nurses, whether you go to public or private, but the doctors and the nurses at a public hospital are seeing a large volume of people instead of just focusing on your care specifically. Well, let me scroll down a little bit. I've already seen some of these. Are there dermatologists in Boquete or David?
There's a dermatologist in David, but not in Boquete.
Mm-hmm. And next question. Sorry, I came in chat late. I'm retired and still having my employer medical coverage. Would this coverage be accepted by hospitals in Panama? It depends on who your employer medical coverage is. If you have access to the Panama Relocation Tour private Facebook group, I just put in our files section a new list of all the insurances that are covered, both in the U.S. insurance, Canadian insurance, Israeli insurance, European insurance. So if you have access to that, then you can go check and see if your insurance is available. Wow, it's already been a whole hour has gone by. We've got all these other questions. So I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions. We'll have to have Kelle and Jeff on again later on to talk about hopefully no more falls, Kelle.
No more.
No more falls.
We can talk about vet care too, because we've had a bunch of that. So.
Oh yeah, well we'll do a whole live stream about vet care. That's another one. The vets are fantastic in Panama, and my vet comes right to my house to take care of Buster. It's usually $25, $35, unless he needs a blood work or something that might cost a little bit more. So we can do another live stream sometime to talk about vet care. It's equally good to people care. So any final remarks for people before we call it a night, Kelle and Jeff?
I do want to I saw that somebody asked about concierge doctors and are they in Panama? And I'm like, you don't need a concierge doctor in Panama. Your doctor is your concierge doctor here. They'll come to your house if you need them to. You get their WhatsApp number. I mean, how much more do you need out of your doctor? Your concierge doctor is going to be that person, right? So yeah.
I will say I do remember seeing concierge doctors advertised for here, but I don't know how. I mean, I know they exist, but I am thoroughly in agreement with Kelle. There's why bother when we get the level of care we already do?
Yeah. So, if you're thinking about moving here, I just got to say, Jeff and I look at each other every day, and we're just like, this is the best thing we've ever done. And we actually did not do the tour. We did the guidebook because we didn't have time to do the tour. We decided to move in February and we moved in July. And so a friend of ours did the tour. She loved it. But the guidebook for us was invaluable. It was easily worth 5 times what we paid for it. It was amazing. And the step-by-step instructions on how to get things done and the timetable, that was like so comforting. You don't know how stressful it is to move to another country until you start selling all your stuff. And then you got to sell your house, and then you got to sell your car. And you're just like, and I look back, I just had lunch or dinner with friends who just moved here 2 days ago. And they were just talking about the stress levels. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I made some really bad decisions during that time. And I'm like, I had to go back and give myself forgiveness because I was like, you know what? I did the best I could under the stress because, it was stressful in the US, which is why we were leaving. And then on top of it, all the stress of the move. But it was absolutely worth every minute of the stress to be here because I lost 35 pounds in the first year I was here without trying, and I was eating crap. So, my health has improved and my mindset, my mental health has gotten so much better just because it's, you get up every day. It's so beautiful and you're just walking around and the pace of life is slower and it's just fantastic. So if you are thinking about Panama, I can't speak highly enough about it. It is the best thing. So, and absolutely go with Jackie because I don't know where we'd be without you. So yeah.
Just to add on to that, one thing the thing that I really appreciate about PRT, in addition to the guidebook and how helpful that was, is the Facebook group and the community building that happens there. Because my experience was, if there was something that I couldn't find exactly the information I wanted, or I couldn't, wanted to get a little bit more in depth than what I could find on the guide, I would ask in the Facebook group, and inevitably 3 or 4 different people would reach out and say, hey, this is the answer, or this is where you can find it, or what have you. And what wound up happening over the course of the 6 months that we took between buying the guide and actually arriving here, and even using the group and the guide after we got here for a period of time.
Oh, we still use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, having that support system is invaluable. You really need it. You know, someone mentioned the other day that they had just moved to Panama, and they had, I don't remember who it was, but they had just moved to the Boquete area, and they'd been staying in hotels and doing all kinds of things. They finally got there, and they mentioned that you guys invited them over for dinner, and it was the first home cooked meal that they'd had in a week because of all the hustle and bustle that you're doing of moving. But those kind of connections are made in our private Facebook group.
And we've made probably 5 or 6 of those by the time before we even got here. We knew people in town before we even got here, and had contacts and WhatsApp information. And it was wonderful to have that support system already before we even arrived.
Yeah, it
was invaluable.
It just, you feel like you're not alone, right? I mean, you're moving to a foreign country that you don't know anything about, and we moved sight unseen. We had never been here. And so we were coming completely blind, except for the videos we had watched online, right? And my friend said, yeah, this is where you'd be happy. So, but the group and the guide just made it feel safer to come, because you weren't alone. And if you couldn't figure something out, you just got on the group and you went, where do I find this? So like, I haven't been able to drive since I fell, and Jeff was sick, and we needed food delivered to the house. And I was like, is there a service that does this that isn't Petitos? Yeah, because I don't want any of the food on there, right? And people were like, here. And they came with a whole list of things, and people were like, oh, I'll get that. Are you okay? I'll come and do it for you. And, it's just this amazing thing of it's just a community. It's an amazing community.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's our family.
Hats off to you, Jackie.
Yeah.
It's our Panama family. Well, Kelly and Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your experience with healthcare in Panama. My experience has been the same. It's one that was not so good, but 99.9% are good. And you're going to have that anywhere you go. But the good in Panama, and the doctors just really do put the care. And, you can run into them in the grocery store and they'll say, hey, Jackie, how are you doing? They remember your name. You're not just a number here in Panama. You see them at a restaurant and they'll come over to your table and say, oh, I saw you were here. Just wanted to say hi. I hope you're doing okay. So it's just, it's such a refreshing way to live.
And your consults aren't 15 minutes. They're as long as you need to talk. Right. Which is the other thing. That $20 or $15 will give you a consult as long as you need to talk. So if you have 8 different things to talk about, they will talk about all 8 of them.
Yep.
Yeah. And we didn't mention this, but you're always going to see the doctor. You're not going to see a physician's assistant. You're not going to see a nurse practitioner. You're going to see the doctor. Now, the nurse practitioner might give you the shot in your butt if they decide you need one. But the doctor's going to be the one that does the consultation with you. So you always get an MD that's going to be doing that consultation. So they really put the care back into it. And Jeff and Kelly, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm so pleased to see you guys just thriving in Panama.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you for having us.
Yes, we do.
All right. And thank you to all of the people that were on our live stream. And next Saturday, I'm going to do a Q&A just to answer any questions that you have about moving to or living in Panama. So it's your chance to just ask any questions that you want. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, because I'll send out a notification to everyone to remind you about that Q&A. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Kelly and Jeff.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.